Global climate is one of the many stories knocked off the front pages by this pandemic, but even as the world economy stalls, it's still there.
In 2020, the UK experienced a year of extremes, from storms in February which caused chaos across the country, to a summer heatwave where temperatures sweltered above 34 degrees for 6 consecutive days, and rain in October with the UK's wettest day on record. It's all charted in an annual assessment of the climate, which found the UK's getting wetter, warmer and sunnier.
Mid and East Antrim is not immune to climate change. It's here and it's now. It's happening along our coastlines, our towns, our villages and our farmlands. Climate change is having a detrimental effect to our biodiversity. It's damaging our properties and our businesses. It's affecting people's mental health, and it's coming at a huge cost, both with damage and also the increased cost for us to deliver services. We're starting to see the impacts now locally and more frequently. Last winter we experienced storm after storm, and this year we had record-breaking temperatures followed by flash floods. We're starting to see extremes now every year in Mid and East Antrim.
Storms and rough seas and coastal winds have caused severe damage to the harbours and marinas, defence walls, coastal walkways and protective railings around Carrickfergus, Larne, Carnock and Glenarm. When combined with the heavy rain, the coastal rock faces have also been susceptible to landslides, which have resulted in the closure of many pedestrian footpaths and tourist attractions such as Blackhead Path for months. Inland, the collapse of trees on council have prevented the ingress and egress to many of the workplaces, which resulted employees from getting to and from their place of work.
In South Bay Play Park, there was high winds, high tides. I think it was around Christmas time. The tide came in and washed all the stones from the beach and then below the safety surface of the play area. So that created a lot of problems. All the safety surface had to be fixed, had to be repaired, the stones removed, relaid again.
Well, in recent times we've had quite a number of storms, and the impact of that primarily means that we have to close our main parks. Trees are a big issue because with a storm trees can come down, and we do get a lot of trees, and there's a lot of older trees there that unfortunately when a storm hits can come down. So two reasons for that: we then close it off for the safety for the public. Secondly then too, if there's any tree that does come down, that we actually deal with that. And on some occasions, in fact fairly recently, in some of the bigger storms, the storms have been that bad that our staff have had to be brought into the yard for their own safety.
We're also very aware that residents use parks for physical exercise and for their mental health and well-being. So even by our parks being closed for 1 or 2 days, it can really affect residents' routines and well-being.
We've also seen an increase in floods and storms in more recent years, which again has disrupted the bin collection service. Our drivers have reported seeing trees felled on the roads, and even parts of the road have disappeared due to flooding. We've actually lost 3 roofs over the last 2 years across our waste facilities. Equally, our household recycling centres have been impacted by extreme weather conditions. When you have the combination of high winds and intense rainfall, which causes drainage issues on site, and the high winds equally have knocked down various fence lines. Bins themselves become hazards in high wind, and of course we have to deal with the aftermath of litter. Delivering all of our council services in extreme weather conditions comes at an additional cost, and we must learn from our past experiences to prepare us for the future.
2010, I think it was a really bad snow, and I mean it was unreal. It was, when you came to Martinstown there was no snow, and all of a sudden you came to Cargan, and it was just from that to the Glens you couldn't get past. Thanks to the council, they come out and helped, and brought big machinery and everything. There was cars that were hidden underneath the snow. So they had to stop the whole traffic, just block it off.
Emergency planning in council and in other agencies really get to see the severe impact that severe weather can have on our residents. Now, it's very much a partnership approach, and we all work together, and an awful lot of work goes on in the background to identify, monitor weather patterns, and with the help of the Met Office, monitor the weather patterns, identify at-risk areas and work together to alleviate those risks. However, we cannot alleviate all risk around weather, and I think climate change is now going to add another layer to that.
During the big freeze in 2010-2011, where temperatures dropped to -18, many of the rooftop air handling plant pipework burst, along with fractures to the mains water supplies, which resulted in a loss of heat and water. This ultimately resulted in buildings having to be closed down for a number of weeks and days, which directly impacted upon the service delivery of other functions such as leisure centres, office blocks and community centres.
In waste operations, we've seen an increase in the frequency and intensity of extreme weather conditions. What used to be once-off events like the big freeze in 2010 are happening more frequently. Our bin collection services have been disrupted due to these challenging weather conditions. Our drivers have reported difficulties delivering the service due to the road conditions with snow and ice putting vehicles off the roads. Drivers have seen snow up to 1 metre in rural locations. We've worked together with local farmers and other services to ensure we deliver not only the bin collection service, but also to deliver food and medicine to those rural communities to ensure they get the help that they need.
Our local biodiversity can really be affected by climate change as well. So if you think of the likes of your garden birds who will nest and lay their eggs in spring, they're expecting a mild climate. And what we get now often is very cold snaps, which they're not prepared for and the chicks just aren't able to deal with. And the adult birds themselves will struggle to find food and water when the ground's frozen and their water sources are frozen. Research has also shown that migratory birds which come to this country are coming up to 4 weeks earlier and staying up to 4 weeks later, which just really shows climate change in action. And if you think about hedgehogs as well, hedgehogs hibernate during winter, but if the winter's particularly mild, they'll come out of hibernation and start to forage, which can really just waste a lot of their energy, and some of them won't survive past that. If there's a particularly mild autumn, hedgehogs may mate again and have more babies, and these babies just won't be equipped to deal with the winter. So a lot of our creatures are really struggling with the up and down changes in the weather.
On the other side of the spectrum, long periods of high temperature and heat waves have contributed to gorse fires in Carrickfergus, Cullibackie, Knocker Monument and Slimish Mountain. And this takes a considerable strain on the resource of staff and local emergency services when attending to extinguish the fires.
Well, increased heat has been more and more regular. We're seeing periods of hot numbers of weeks, which for us impact greatly. We grow our own flowers here, but one of the biggest enemies to those plants, of course, is water and the lack of it. That means teams going out very early in the morning, and also we'll do another run in the evenings. And the water, we are very fortunate though that the water that we use, we have our own borehole here on site, and that actually future-proofs us going forward. We have our own water service or supply, and we also have a borehole actually at the showgrounds main arena, which we use to maintain that facility. So we're particularly fortunate.
Even our native tree species are struggling now because there's increased temperatures and increased humidity in this country, and that can lead to an increase in pest disease in our trees, the likes of canker or dieback or bark beetle, and these all really affect the stability of trees. They stress them out and weaken them, and means the trees are more likely to fall. Trees are essential for combating climate change. They can absorb huge amounts of carbon, absorb huge amounts of water when there's flash flooding, and really stabilise the soil. So by more trees coming down, our environment is less stable, and you can see how a vicious circle is easily created. Grass is another way that we can see climate change in action. Traditionally, we would put our machinery away in mid-autumn and not taking it out again until spring, but now grass cutting is a year-round task, just because the grass keeps growing because the climate is so much wetter and milder.
On the other hand, we experience periods of intense heat, and during these times we advise our staff to wear full PPE to protect them from the UV rays. Also, our waste operatives have reported that the bin compaction sensors on the backs of the lorries go awry due to this extreme heat, and they don't compact the waste in the back of the lorry. Green waste, when bulked, can become a hazard in extreme heat conditions as it can ignite.
In Glenarm, the river floods, it rises up and then you have to put sandbags at the bridge to stop the water flooding onto the road. So we put the sandbags down to try and prevent the flooding of the road. Keeps the water away from the houses as well. It happens whenever there's high tides, and if the wind's blowing the right way, then the tide then surges up the river even more.
Torrential rain this year, it was, but I think every area maybe got that. But ours was bad. My garden, I always had beautiful flowers in my front garden, and this year they're all, I have to replant again. It was like a pond, you know, which never ever happened before. So there must have been a lot more rainfall this year than ever.
A lot of our allotment holders or keen gardeners in the borough will have noticed that the climate can have a huge impact on their crops. If there's waterlogged soil, it's going to be detrimental to your crops, and you will see a real increase in pests due to climate change. So one example is slugs. So slugs really prefer wet and humid temperatures, and as we're getting more and more of that in this country and less cold winters, there's more and more slugs. So what we're finding now is slugs are surviving through the winter, they're laying more eggs, the eggs are hatching quicker, and so within a couple of years we may have double, triple, quadruple the amount of slugs in our gardens, which gardeners will know can really decimate your garden, and it just throws off the ecosystem in your gardens.
August 2008 was the worst flooding, and to come home and see the devastation of the inside of your house, it was just an absolute nightmare. It's just devastating. You just live every time it rains. You're just living on your nerves. You wonder it's going to flood again. And as I say, that's why my hair is white. My hair fell out, grew back white. Mentally, I just still see all that from I got off the plane till I arrived here in my house. Just to walk into that house and just see the devastation. Whenever you're flooded, yes, people are there. They're there at that time of your flooding. But after, and everything's all, and your house all back up, and everything's set, then you just feel you're forgot about.
Our resilience group is made up of people from different groups in the parish. You know, we've got together with the GAA, with men with big tractors, and there's just they're working really, really well together, and that's what's needed in every area.
We have set up a group. Say there's about 20-25 residents. They set up a meeting over in the Harryville Partnership, and where a lot of the residents attended along with some of the councillors, and we did like first aid, just different things to sort of help the community. We got the sandbag, the bank over in the Wakehurst. I actually still have some sandbags in my yard. That's how would you put it? I'm still not really that it'll not flood again.
What we're trying to do is build community resilience across our borough, but what we really want to see is every resident in our borough has that knowledge of what to do in the event of a severe weather event. I'm going to show you some booklets now, because these have been published by the RCRG and they're readily available, and we would like to see everybody in the borough having access to those. They contain very useful hints and tips about what to do, and that knowledge, having that knowledge and having that preparation is really key to moving into the future around climate change. I would encourage all of our residents in our borough to be prepared, and that's our strap line. If you're on social media, search #BePrepared and you'll find lots of information there. Go onto our website, which you will find at the end of this video, and search for emergency planning. There's lots of information on there, including those booklets. If you're a community group, please get in touch. We would really like to come and talk to you about what you can do as a group in your community, whether that be training up volunteers to help in an emergency or any other of the strengths that we can help you build up.
Council has reduced its carbon footprint every year for the past 5 years. We're committed to continuing to reduce our carbon footprint through behaviour change and also the implementation of new technologies across our transport and our estate. We are developing green infrastructure in the borough, such as the upcoming Larne to Doak Greenway and the Cycle Master Plan. These will offer residents more sustainable travel options. We're fortunate in Mid and East Antrim to already have nature-based solutions to store carbon and help to protect us from extreme weather events, and we're making the most of these. For example, there's a planned restoration of Garran Plateau Bog, along with support from the RSPB. These will help protect species and habitats, and they're a very effective carbon store. We've planted over 38,000 trees in the last 2 years with support from the Woodland Trust. These absorb carbon and also help reduce effects from flooding. We maintain many parks right across the borough in urban and rural spaces to offer residents a healthy leisure alternative. We know that this has a positive effect on their mental health. In addition, the Ecos Centre in Ballymena, it provides flood alleviation to the town and surrounding areas. Council officers have recently come together with support from Climate NI to identify the main risks to operations and our communities to develop an adaptation plan. Council's adaptation plan will ensure that our services and communities are more resilient now and better prepared for the effect of climate change into the future. On the ground, we're working with local communities through our Community Resilience Partnership and to be more prepared for floods, snow and storm events. We all need to work together now to actually make a difference. We need that to have hope and to make sure that that has an impact, not just here in Mid and East Antrim and Northern Ireland, but also globally.